الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ومولانا محمد وآله وأزواجه وذريته أجمعين. Continuing our reading of Allama Iqbal's Reconstruction of Religious Thought in Islam, and we are here in the red, but we'll just go back a bit. We must not, however, regard it as a mysterious special faculty that is heart. It is rather a mode of dealing with reality, in which sensation, in the physiological sense of the word, does not play any part. So we had looked at this in detail. Yet the vistas of experience thus open to us is as real and concrete as any other experience. To describe it as psychic, mystical, or supernatural does not detract from its value as experience. Okay, so to the primitive man, who is that? All experience was supernatural. Now this is the concept of primitive man is the concept, basic concept in sociology and anthropology, and the concept of modernity. And Allama Iqbal is accepting it. It's here at this point anyway, without criticizing, I guess. To the primitive man, all experience was supernatural. In what sense? Well, let us dwell a bit on the concept of primitive man, because we reject that there is any such thing as called primitive man. Because the concept of primitive man is that the basic concept of primitive man or woman the logic behind this concept is that the evolution of civilization can be understood, in a sense, can be understood on the simile of the evolution of an individual human being. So an individual human being goes through a development. So there is a childhood, there is teenage adolescence, then you have manhood, and then you grow old. All those stages. So only when you are adult, you are mature enough to see things as they are. So the whole concept of maturity and immaturity also becomes very important. For example, in Kant's definition of modernity or enlightenment, for example. So the idea is that you can understand the civilization or cultures based on this example of individual self-development as well. So a civilization or culture, and then you can apply it to humanity as a whole, goes through these stages. So there was time when human beings as a whole, as human beings or mankind, a more appropriate word, mankind were like child. So that's, in that sense, they were primitive. Their understanding was childlike. So earlier men And then, you have development, you have different ages, you have hunter-gatherers, and then you have farming and writing, and that's how mankind and the culture and civilization develops as well. And with the modern European civilization, we have reached our maturity because mankind's collective understanding has matured. So previous stages were more like, childlike stages or teenage stages or adolescent stages. But now modernity is when mankind has attained maturity because their collective reason has attained maturity. It has developed. Now they see world as it should be seen as it is. But earlier human beings, they saw world from the lens of a childlike intellect. So that's the whole idea of primitive man. Now, Islamically speaking, primitive man, we reject all this theory because there's no such thing as primitive man. Primitive man in the collective sense, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent, our theory is that Allah ta'ala sent hidayah or guidance. So human beings were, and we were created with full senses, and earlier human beings were, they received guidance from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So their cultures were the complete and perfect cultures. They got degenerated, or they went into degradation, or because of their avoidance of guidance and their prioritization of desire over guidance. On the other hand, the modernity's conception is that human beings, and their cultures and their civilization evolve like a child evolve. And in earlier stages of human civilization, the collective human intellect was childlike. And only now we have attained our maturity. So that's the whole Kantian idea of maturity and immaturity, and the whole concept of primitive man, etc. So Allama Iqbal is sort of accepting it. I don't know whether he's accepting it just as for time being, or he fully accepts it, or what. But we'll see. Okay, let's go back. So, to describe it as a psychic, mystical or supernatural does not detract it from its value as experience. The primitive man, all experience was supernatural. Like child, if you, for example, study Piaget's psychology and his study of the development of child. So, according to him, according to Piaget, a child cannot distinguish between. I think he means something like that. A child. Let's see. So this guy, person, his name is Jean Piaget. He was a French, French in the sense that I think he wrote in French, but he was a Swiss psychologist. And I'm not sure, but I think he was a French-speaking. That's the name sounds. So his theory, he has this theory of cognitive development. And also known as Piaget's 4 stages of cognitive development. And his basic idea is that his theory is actually about child development. But you will see, for example, Habermas in his theory of communicative action, Habermas theory of communicative action, volume 1, for example, volume 1, he applies Piaget's theories to culture and civilizations. So Piaget's theory is that a child cognitive development is not just increase in knowledge, but what develops is his mental framework, so to speak, as well. And when a child doesn't have, for example, any clear distinction between subject, his own sense, and object, this distinction or differentiation comes through development. So only when a child is, grows up, is able to distinguish between himself and the object. At the early stages, he's, according to his conception, I mean, this is a technical term, but his worldview is self-centered. And he goes through what Piaget calls decentration. And Habermas applies this concept of decentration to worldviews, for example. So self-centered means there's no distinction or differentiation between subject and object at earlier stages of child development. And with decentration, a child is able to separate or distinguish between himself, herself, or the objects around it. So maybe when he's saying it, that for primitive man, all experience is supernatural, probably he means something like that. A person cannot distinguish between himself and the universe around it, and that's somehow supernatural. And by the way, every experience has supernatural element in it. Supernatural doesn't mean some sort of divine or anything. Every natural experience has supernatural dimensions, so to speak. Even our normal sense experience. As you know, if you have studied phenomenology, or you will know. Okay. So that's what I wanted to explain, really. To describe it as to the primitive man, all experience was supernatural. Prompted by the immediate necessities of life, he was driven to interpret his experience, and out of this interpretation gradually emerged nature in our sense of the word. See, immediateness. So it was more like an animal at the earlier stages of life, according to this conception. Animal, not in any derogatory sense, I'm not saying that, but or child, he wasn't able to distinguish between his immediacy. And nature is a concept, so concept emerge only when there is a ability to distinguish and differentiate, and the main and distance, and hence think abstractly and alternatively. So that the first step towards that is the distinction between self and the object. The total reality which enters our awareness and appears on interpretation as an empirical fact has other ways of invading our consciousness and offer further opportunities of interpretation. So total reality, you mean conception of reality. And that's what I was meaning, phenomenology, like holistic nature of our experience. Even our individual experience are embedded in our total consciousness, etc. So that's true, but by this we don't mean that. I mean, for this we can't conclude that human beings were like childlike at earlier stages. Human beings were just like us. Ibrahim alayhi salam or Nuh alayhi salam, they weren't childlike, or their mental capacity wasn't childlike. At least Quran doesn't say that. The same message is being, delivered every time at the different stages of human history. The revealed and mystic literature of mankind bears ample testimony to the fact that religious experience has been too enduring and dominant in the history of mankind to be rejected as mere illusion. Obviously, there are many ways you can understand illusion. So even those who say that religious experience is illusion doesn't mean that they deny its reality. So that's not a very strong point on the face of it, anyway. But you can see he's trying to establish somehow scientific credential of religious experience through his argument for the centrality of heart in the perception of reality. If not centrality, at least it's necessity. Okay, yeah, and religious experience. There seems to be no reason then to accept the normal level of human experience as fact and reject its other levels as mystical and emotional. Normal mean, what we consider normal. Normal means sense experience, I guess he's saying. The fact that religious experience are facts among the other facts of human experience, and in the capacity of yielding knowledge by interpretation, one fact is as good as another. Well, if it's at purely human level, yes. But on the other hand, our day-to-day experience, it is public and publicly verifiable. But on the other hand, verification of religious experience is more roundabout. You can't deny that. And nor is there anything irreverent in critically examining this region of human experience. Of course not, as far as it is a human experience. But the example he is going to give is not of human experience, because the experience of Prophet is not human experience as such. I mean, it is by human, but a human protected by God and Masoom in that sense. So religious experience shouldn't be considered as in Iqbal's sense, religious experience, the way he is talking about religious experience up to this point on this page, is more like ilham and kashf. You can apply that to ilham and kashf, but not to wahi, for example, the prophetic revelation, for example. Okay, I think we'll just stop here, and next time we'll look at his mention of Ibn Sayyad's story and all that. Okay, thank you.